Hello there, Gilly Wharton here, talking about the magic of vulnerability and how if you are prepared to really show up fully in life, it draws in the right partners for you and deepens the healthy relationships that you do have. So let's look at what it is. Now, if like me, well, like how I used to think that vulnerability was like a weakness when I used to work in the corporate world, very long time ago now. I used to think that that would be showing a weakness, a flaw in my character somehow, and I had to be this person that was always in control and always like just had got almost like a screen around me, really, just covering up who I really was deep down, deep down. So even if I did have fears or worries, you know, I very rarely would show them, and that's built out to personal relationships as well. So when we look at vulnerability, a lot of people think that it is a kind of a weakness, and I think some of that comes from the way we use the word when it comes to things like, oh, I don't know, health checks and insurance, stuff like that. You say, oh, you're more sort of vulnerable to flooding because you're on a floodplain, or you're more vulnerable to getting that chest infection because you've had such and such. So we see it as a weakness, but I think that when it comes to relationships, we need to look at vulnerability in a very, very different way. I see vulnerability, and all it is really is about showing up fully, not just showing the bits that are all shiny and bright and everything's fine, everything's all right, or people pleasing, or just coming away from how we really think and feel and just putting a bit of a screen over it, whether that be dumbing it down, you know, just numbing that down through alcohol or hard work or just soldiering on, or whether that's through, or whether that's just not, you know, letting that part of ourselves out because we just really control ourselves. All of those things stop us from showing up to who we really, really are. And what I know is that when we begin to show up as we truly are, all aspects of ourselves, and I mean this in context, guys, you know, when we're talking to the person in Sainsbury's or wherever in the bank, we don't go into the banks anymore, do we? But it shows my age. But you know what I mean? That we, with our nearest and dearest, we really have had that time to connect with ourselves, so we know what's right for ourselves, so we know how to share the parts of us that really are about our values and our beliefs, the things that we are concerned about. And when we begin to do that, what it starts to forge is a much greater meaning and connection with people, and it can act like this real magic ingredient that helps people just build up empathy and connection. So let's just go into a little bit more about that then. So I've just said that a huge transition can take place when you show up as being vulnerable. And what we mean by that is just bringing to the table what you feel is right for you, your fears, your worries, your concerns, and just bringing that to a relationship. So what happens very often is that we all lead such busy lives, or we try and people please, or we try and just, you know, get things right in other people's eyes, or do what we think we should be doing, or even too scared to really show up as ourselves because we don't think we know, got a bit of a kind of a not a good enough story going on. What we do is we often just don't give ourselves time or the permission to recognise those things that are underneath. So when we feel negative feelings like anger, it can be because somebody's done something that's infringed our values, or, you know, allowed us to feel some sort of shame or guilt or something. It can be that we go into a certain situation because of a not good enough thing going on. We start to feel anxious or worried, and more often than not, the clients that sit in front of me are the ones that for a long time have tolerated that way of being. They just think, no, I'll be okay, I can deal with that, it's okay. It's almost as if those uncomfortable feelings become normal. But what those uncomfortable feelings are, it's like a little pot of magic. It's like your internal sat nav that's going, hey, there's something not quite right here, there's something not quite right here. So when we begin to really take time to recognize how we feel, and then one giant leap for woman and mankind is to actually say, and just to acknowledge that, and just to have compassion for ourselves, just to say, I'm enough, even with that fear, even with that worry, even with that shame about what I did all that time ago. And when you fully take on board all that you are, it's such a beautiful, loving, compassionate thing. And that first step on its own can really make somebody feel more empowered, feel differently about where they're going and who they are. So the first step to vulnerability is just simply recognizing just where you don't feel so happy, where you don't feel so great about things. And remember, those emotions are just your internal satellite navigation system for saying, can we have a bit of an attention here? Because it's just saying, I want to be somewhere different. And that is a massive step towards really showing up. So when we show ourselves some compassion and really honour ourselves, that is, as I've said, I know I'm banging on about it, but it's so true. It's just such a massive step forward. And then when we're able to take all of ourselves into a relationship, what we do is if the relationship isn't right for you, because you're showing up fully, it's highly likely that relationship over time, you'll know that that's not right for you, or the person that you're with, you'll know that they're not right for you, or that whatever's happening within the dynamic of you. When you start fully showing up, it might make someone else angry. It might make somebody else just not want, put you down and stuff like that. But if you're still showing up for you and really taking on board that all the parts of you, then when a relationship isn't right, yes, it can bring things to a head and dissolve those relationships. But if you're showing up fully for yourself, what also happens is you begin to attract in the people that are right for you, that you can build a deep and lasting connection with. One of the worst things, and over the last 20 years when I've worked with thousands of people, what I do see time and time again is the times that relationships break down are the times when two people lose intimate connection. And I don't mean just sexual connection, but that they lose that relationship of understanding where each other is. They don't converse how they're feeling. So even if somebody's worried about, for instance, somebody leaving them or being abandoned or somebody not liking them, there is a level when you're in a relationship where when you start to just show up fully as you are, it builds just lasting trust. It makes the other person connect with who you really are. And when they start showing up in the same way, then it makes you much more curious, and that curiosity about each other just fosters connection, fosters empathy, and fosters those deeper, more lasting, connected relationships. What I see as well with my clients who sit in front of me, some people, not so much these days, but when I started a long time ago doing coaching work, I had one or two people say, oh gosh, people who go for help, isn't that a bit weak? Can't they sort it out themselves? And it's the biggest pile of BS that you could possibly imagine. Because for me, somebody who has done what I've just said here is recognise that they've got something they want to change, and then they go and sit and talk to somebody about that. That's really showing up fully. I think that's the bravest, most compassionate thing you can do for yourself. But you know what? It builds the foundations of, and that is transformational change. And I have known this myself this year. At the beginning of this year, I decided that my business, I wanted to make some big changes in my business. And I tried a few things and it just wasn't working. So I joined a coaching group, started getting one-to-one coaching with this amazing lady. And it has absolutely turned me, my fortunes and my business, absolutely, well, it's just, I wouldn't say turned them around, it's just massively expanded who I am and who I can be. And even through lockdown, I was, I just felt so buoyant and just engaged with life and, having that bigger picture in mind. So when we start, guys, I could go off on a tangent here and I can feel myself going on one, but I'm trying to bring myself back. When we connect with who we really are, when we honour who we are by recognising those feelings and choosing to do something about them, because it's just the opposite of where you truly want to be, that's all it is. And when we can share that with another person, whether it be in an intimate relationship or getting coaching, talking to a friend, the right kind of friend, then we can only just, that's just such a huge step in personal expansion. And I have seen so many of my clients who have just sat down and said, I can't just get a lid on my anxiety. I just feel as though I am stuck. I've tried so many things, nothing seems to work, and I'm losing faith. When people show up in this way, this is where we get the magic, because that is the step, that is where we start getting the transformation. If you're interested in transforming an aspect of your life, then come along and join Your Empowered Life, my new Facebook community. And there we do the inner work as well as the outer work. So there's lots of tips and techniques that you can share and that I share, but also I'm really big on doing that inner work, because it's there that we really get that long-lasting change. So I hope that was helpful, guys, and I will hopefully see you in the group. There'll be a link in the post.